Good morning to all. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to the webinar. Today's topic is how to keep your brain healthy and lower your risk of cognitive decline. And these complimentary webinars are brought to you through a collaboration of sponsorship with Care Choices Hospice and Palliative Services, O'Connor Mortuary, Caring Companions at Home, and of course, Alzheimer's Orange County. And my name is Kim Bailey, and I'm a programs and education specialist here at Alzheimer's Orange County, and I'll be your host today. Our sponsors are providing these webinars to you as a service to the community on topics of interest that are beneficial to anyone who cares for and works with older adults, either out in the community or at home with loved ones. And we hope that you find today's presentation informative and useful. Today, our speaker is Aroxy Kirakosian, and she is on staff with us at Alzheimer's Orange County. She is the Memory Programs Coordinator here at Alzheimer's Orange County. She received her Master's of Public Health from California State University, Northridge, is a certified health education specialist and a certified memory trainer from the UCLA Longevity Center. Aroxy leads MindFit OC, a healthy brain initiative here at ALS OC, by teaching evidence-based health education and memory enhancement programs for older adults. Her goal is to motivate and empower older adults to engage in healthy lifestyle and behavioral changes to reduce their risk of developing cognitive decline. And we're so proud and pleased to bring her on with us now and turn this presentation over to her at this time. So welcome, Aroxy. And I'm going to turn everything over to you at this time. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Kim. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Aroxy. I'm going to talk to you about how to keep your brain healthy. I believe this is such an important topic, especially for professionals, because these guidelines are not only helpful to you, but also to your clients and the patients that you are working with. Our goals for today are to understand age-related changes in memory and learning, identify 6 pillars of brain health, review possible risks and threats to brain health, learn what you can do to protect your brain and lower risk of cognitive decline, and if we have time, we'll talk a little bit about how to create goals for a healthy brain. First of all, let's talk about aging and health. Historically, dementia or cognitive decline has been viewed as an aging issue. While age is the strongest known risk factor for developing dementia, dementia is not an inevitable consequence of aging. In the 1900s, the average life expectancy was about 49. The average life expectancy today is 80. We are living longer, but are we leading healthy lifestyles? Not necessarily, because nearly 61% of Americans over the age of 65 are dealing with multiple chronic health conditions. Thus, it is very important for us to practice healthy behaviors. Let's look at how aging is portrayed in the media. Now, when we look at how aging is portrayed in the media, we see there's so many different misconceptions, there's pervasive attitudes, aging is stereotyped as dependent, frail, out of touch, a burden. Some of the most important barriers to developing good public policy on aging are these pervasive misconceptions, these negative attitudes, and these assumptions about older adults. So we really need to shift our perspective and how we view older adults. We need to view older adults as happy, older adults who are active, healthy, and thriving. Just like Ida Keeling here on this PowerPoint slide, she set a world record at the age of 95. She was the first woman in history to complete a 100-meter run at the age of 100. What is aging? There's something called the Baltimore Longitudinal Study of Aging, which began in 1958. And this is from the National Institute on Aging. This is the most comprehensive, longest running longitudinal study of human aging in the world. And about 3,000 volunteers made a lifelong commitment to research. And after 6 decades of research, these scientists were able to narrow down their conclusions to 2 major things. First, changes that occur with aging do not inevitably lead to diseases such as dementia. A number of disorders that typically occur in old age are a result of the disease process, not normal aging. In other words, dementia, disease is not a normal part of aging. And number 2, we all age differently. There's no single chronological timetable of human aging. It does not exist. In fact, when we look at change and development, there are more differences among older adults than there are among younger adults. Research is still ongoing. Researchers continue to study to identify interactions among genetic, environmental, social, behavioral interactions. Aging well depends on 3 major things. It depends on your lifestyle, your environment, and your genes. When we're talking about lifestyle, we're talking about your everyday activities, your opinions, your attitudes, your values. It basically shapes who you are. And when we say environment, we're talking about everything that's around us, including the people, the things, the infrastructures, the policies, the communities, the culture, and genes. Although there are certain genes that are associated with longevity, there's something called the Danish twin study that actually revealed that a very small fraction of longevity is hard-coded into our genes, and the rest is predicted by lifestyle. And that's very good news for us because it tells us that healthy lifestyle choices may help you to maintain a healthy body, a healthy brain, and may help to reduce your risk for cognitive decline. Let's talk about age-related changes in learning and memory because your brain ages and changes just like the rest of your body. Your brain may slow down in speed, become less adaptable to change. Some of these mild changes are increased difficulty finding words, more problems in multitasking, mild decreases in the ability to pay attention. Increased difficulty finding words, we may also call that tip of the tongue experience. Some people also like to call that senior moments. I'm not a big fan of that term because this happens to everybody regardless of age. It does increase in frequency as we get older because recall is strongly affected by age. And 90% of speakers from all over the world experience this phenomenon. It's not only exclusive to the English language as well, but we do know that it does increase in frequency as we get older. Younger adults experience it about as often as once a day, older adults as often as once a day. So young adults once a week, and then older adults once a day. We may also start to see more problems in multitasking. This is an interesting one because our brains are not designed to multitask. When we multitask, we are rapidly switching our focus, our attention, and concentration from one activity to another without giving our full thought, focus, concentration to those activities. It's important to be mindful and try to reduce multitasking as much as possible, especially if we want to form very strong long-term memories. Multitasking hurts our memory capacities. It's very important to do one thing at a time and then move on to something else. We may also start to see mild decreases in the ability to pay attention. And this is important because the first step in creating a memory is paying attention. And we find a lot of the time when individuals do come in to Alzheimer's Orange County for a memory screening, a lot of the time it's not a memory problem, it's a paying attention problem. So the first step in creating a memory is paying attention. And just like I said earlier, our brains are aging and changing just like the rest of our bodies. So if you notice any of these mild changes, it can be considered normal age-related changes. And of course, the good news is, because there's always good news, you can still learn new things, you can still create new memories, and you can improve vocabulary and language skills. And significant memory loss is not an inevitable consequence of aging. As we age, there's typical kinds of memory that gets worse with age, and that's the memory for specifics and memory for details. We keep the gist and we lose the details. However, if we do see some changes, whether mild or major, there may be some causes we should look to rule out. These are potentially reversible causes of memory loss. This is not a comprehensive list, but this is a list of things that can cause changes in memory and thinking skills. Poor nutrition and or dehydration, thyroid deficiency, medications, depression, sleep deprivation, not paying enough attention, and distractions. There's a lot of growing evidence that people who experience the least declines all share certain characteristics. And these characteristics are eating a well, healthy, balanced diet, partaking in regular physical activity, pursuing intellectually stimulating activities or cognitive stimulation, having their medical health under control, getting enough sleep and relaxation, and being very socially active. And research has shown that the brain has the ability to change throughout our entire lifespan. Our brains can create new connections, create new cells, and even increase in size. And that's if we pursue these healthy lifestyles. First, let's talk about the first pillar. Those were the 6 pillars of brain health. The first pillar is diet and nutrition. Now, most of us have room for improvement because when we look at the average American diet, we see that it's very high in added fats and oils, very high in meat, poultry, fish, very high in grains, and very little fruits and vegetables. 3 out of 4 Americans don't eat a single piece of fruit in a given day. And having a healthy diet is not only avoiding the foods that are bad for you, but it's also about consuming very specific types of foods that are going to contribute to better brain power. Now, let's look at your plate. How should you design your plate? You want to fill half of your plate with vegetables and fruits, and you want to aim for color and variety. And then a quarter of your plate should be dedicated to protein. And you want to look for healthy protein options that come with unsaturated fat. Unsaturated fat is the good type of fat that your body needs, and it comes with health benefits. Some good sources of unsaturated fat protein: fish, poultry, beans, nuts, all very healthy and all very versatile. And then the remaining quarter of your plate should be dedicated to whole grain foods. And the keyword that you're looking for is whole grain. And some examples of whole grain foods are whole wheat, barley, wheat berries, quinoa, oats, brown rice, whole wheat pasta, whole oats, buckwheat, rye. And you want to make water your drink of choice. You do want to limit milk and dairy products to 1 to 2 servings a day, and limit juice to a small glass because most of the time juices and sodas come packed with added sugars, and we want to avoid that as much as possible. When we're talking about a healthy diet, we're talking about a Mediterranean-like diet. This doesn't have any specific guidelines, but we do see a pattern. We see a moderate calorie intake. What that means is reducing your average calorie intake below what is typical, below what is average for you without causing malnutrition. You also want to increase your omega-3 fatty acids. These are essential fats, and your body can't make these fats from scratch, so it must get them from other foods. Some sources of omega-3 fatty acids are fish, vegetable oils, nuts, especially walnuts, flax seeds, flaxseed oil, and leafy vegetables. You also want to increase antioxidants. Antioxidants are essential for the survival of all living things. What antioxidants are these substances that prevent or slow damage caused to your cells, caused by free radicals. And free radicals are all over us, all over our environment. They get into our bodies and they damage our cells. So when we eat antioxidants, we are actually protecting our cells from damage. And you also want to eat a low glycemic index. What that means is it's a carbohydrate containing food that can be rated on a scale of how it affects your blood sugar levels. So foods on the low glycemic index have a low effect on your blood sugar levels. So that's going to minimize insulin spikes. And foods on the high glycemic index have a high effect on your blood sugar levels. Those are the types of foods that you want to avoid. So foods on the low glycemic index are your most fruits, vegetables, beans, minimally processed grains, pasta, low-fat dairy foods, and nuts. Just to give you an idea of the foods in the high glycemic index, those are things like white rice, crackers, most packaged cereals, cakes, croissants, most of the delicious things that we consume. The USDA analyzed 100 different types of foods and food categories based on their antioxidant concentration and capacity, and they were able to narrow it down to top 20 antioxidant containing food. Now, this is not a comprehensive list, and these foods don't necessarily reflect their health benefit because, as you can see, we have russet potatoes on here. This does not mean that you should be consuming russet potatoes every day. This is only meant to give you an idea. If you don't consume antioxidants, which we know that Americans don't consume a lot of antioxidants, this is only meant to give you an idea. And it's interesting because when we do look at the Western diet, we see that the biggest source of antioxidants is actually coffee. That's because we don't consume a lot of antioxidants. So this is another area that we all have room for improvement. Great. To sum it up, the Mediterranean-like diet is recognized by the World Health Organization as a very healthy and sustainable dietary pattern that may help to reduce the risk of cognitive decline. So as a summary, the main components of the Mediterranean diet include daily consumption of vegetables, fruits, whole grains, and healthy fats, a weekly intake of fish, poultry, beans, and eggs, moderate portions of dairy products, and limited intake of red meat. How much is a serving? The best measurement tool that you have is actually your hand. And if you clench your fist, that's about 1 cup. Your thumb is about 2 tablespoons. The tip of your index finger is roughly equal to 1 teaspoon. Your palm is roughly the size serving of meat, and the front fist is about 1/2 cup. Now let's switch gears and talk about physical activity, because this is one of the most important things that older adults can do for themselves. How much physical activity are we getting? Unfortunately, less than 1/4 of Americans hit the recommendations for physical activity. It's good for you no matter your age or your health conditions, and it's never too late to start exercising. Evidence now suggests that people who begin exercise training later on in their lives, even in their 60s, 70s, can still benefit from improved heart function, and they can see improvements in their breathing and their fatigue levels. What does the research show? Research shows that physically active people seem less likely to develop cognitive decline, all-cause dementia, vascular dementia, and Alzheimer's disease when compared to inactive people. Now, this is especially true for the highest level of physical activity. This seems to be most protective. And these are studies that include large observational studies with follow-up periods extending decades. Now, what do we mean when we're talking about physical activity? In the context of older adults, 65 and older, physical activity can be anything recreational or leisure time activity. This can include transportation, like walking, cycling. This can also include occupational, if you're still engaged in work, household chores, like playing games, sports, planned exercises, planned activities. You can also think about it in the context of daily, community, family activities. Basically, anything that gets you up and moving and gets your heart rate up can be considered physical activity, especially if you are normally inactive. Physical activity may also reduce risks of diabetes, heart disease, depression, and stroke. It enhances your immune system, prevents falls, and improves connections among brain cells. And exercise changes the way in the brain in ways that protect memory and thinking skills. The World Health Organization provides some very specific recommendations for us. 150 minutes of moderate intensity aerobic physical activity throughout the week, or 75 minutes of vigorous intensity aerobic physical activity throughout the week. This is roughly 30 minutes of physical activity every single day. And you can do a talk test. It's a simple way to measure relative intensity. And just to give you an idea of what moderate is, what vigorous is, moderate is walking briskly, about 3 miles per hour. It's also water aerobics, tennis, general gardening, ballroom dancing, just to name a few. And vigorous intensity is running, jogging, swimming laps, jumping rope, bicycling 10 miles per hour or faster, or hiking uphill. If you are 65 and older, you're generally fit, you can benefit from 30 minutes of physical activity every single day, but you do have to be consistent and you do have to do it every single day. But it is important to check with your healthcare provider, especially if you haven't been active for a while and if you want to start a vigorous exercise program, just to see if this is right for you at this time. Start with very small steps that would lead to higher levels of physical activity. Now let's talk about cognitive stimulation, exercising your brain. What is cognitive reserve? Cognitive reserve is a resiliency for your brain. It refers to the brain's ability to compensate for neuropathology or damage. And mental exercise is just as important as physical exercise when we're talking about protecting our brain and our bodies. And studies show that increasing cognitive activity may stimulate or increase cognitive reserve. And cognitive reserve is developed over a lifetime of pursuing intellectually stimulating activities and curiosity and challenge for your brain. Here are some ways that you can exercise your brain, stimulate your brain, and increase your cognitive reserve. Some ideas, again, it's not a comprehensive list. There's no one size fits all. There's no one best type of brain exercise. It really is dependent on your preferences, what you like, what you enjoy. You can read books and magazines, play games and puzzles, learn a new language, take or teach a class, learn to play a musical instrument, join a choir, take up quilting, knitting, drawing, learning digital photography, taking a cooking class, working, or volunteering. But first and foremost, if you want to exercise your brain, first you have to think about your lifestyle, right? You have to think about, am I exercising enough? Am I eating a well-balanced diet? Because even before you want to stimulate your brain, you have to think about these modifiable risk factors. You have to start with very small steps because it's not any one thing that you can do. Everything is connected and it's all about a lifestyle. But again, the bottom line here is you do have to be consistent. You do have to find a couple things that you really enjoy because research tells you if you are really enjoying and if you're engaged in the activity, that's also very good for your brain. But if you do see that these things are becoming very easy for you, you do have to move on to more challenging activities. And just doing Sudoku puzzles or crossword puzzles every day is not going to cut it. You do have to be creative when it comes to staving off mental decline. All right, let's talk about sleep and relaxation. There are changes to sleep as we get older, and sleep affects our overall health, including our hormones, our immune system. As people get older, their sleep changes because of changes in their circadian rhythm. And circadian rhythm is this internal process. It's this biological clock that regulates your sleep-wake cycles. It tells you when to wake up, when to go to sleep. So experiencing changes in sleep cycles as you're getting older can be quite normal. Sleep becomes less deep and there are more awakenings, and sleep becomes most vulnerable to disturbances like environmental factors. It can be due to medications or poor lifestyle factors. The good news, there's always good news, is that people at any age can change their behavior to improve their sleep. And aging well really is about prioritizing sleep. Sleep is essential for every single organ in our bodies. It's essential to our overall mental and physical health and well-being. And it's especially important for our brains because it promotes cognitive function by allowing the brain to create new brain cell connections. And also, this is a very interesting one. During sleep, the brain clears out toxins like beta amyloid, and the accumulation of this protein has been associated with the development of Alzheimer's disease. So your brain is clearing out all these toxins while you are dedicating 7 to 9 hours of sleep every single day. Aging well is all about prioritizing sleep. And REM sleep, which stands for rapid eye movement, along with non-REM sleep, they're both equally important, but REM sleep especially because it's involved in memory consolidation. This occurs 90 minutes after you fall asleep, and this plays a very pivotal role in both memory and other cognitive functions. Here are some tips for a good night's sleep. There's a myth out there that older adults don't need the same amount of sleep as the young adults, and they're fine with just 5 to 6 hours. That's actually not true. Older adults need the same amount of sleep as all adults, which is 7 to 9 hours of non-negotiable sleep every single day. So here are some do's and don'ts. You want to follow a regular sleep schedule, meaning go to bed at the same time, wake up at the same time every single day. Doesn't matter if it's weekend, weekday, holiday, or you're traveling. You want to develop a bedtime routine, meaning maybe there are certain things that you like to do to wind down. Maybe you like to soak up in a warm bath, light scented candles, read a good book. Just make sure you do that every single day to develop a routine and to train your brain to go to sleep. You also want to control the temperature in the room. The ideal temperature in your room should be about 65 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's pretty cool. And you may have noticed from experience, it's much easier to go to sleep when it's cold rather than when it's hot. And the reason why that is because when we go to sleep, our bodies need to drop about 2 to 3 degrees to initiate sleep and to stay asleep. So just be mindful of the temperature in your room, and if you can't control it, you can also open the window to allow some cool air to come in. Use low lighting also. That's very important because when our eyes are exposed to very bright blue lights, the sensory cells in our eyes are tricked that we need to be awake and we need to be alert. Also, do exercise during the day. That's also very, very important for very good sleep hygiene. Here are some don'ts. Don't nap in the late afternoon or evening because naps may keep you awake at night. Don't use electronic devices right before bed. Avoid electronics at least 1 hour before bed. And don't eat large meals late, but also don't go to bed hungry either. Try to find that comfortable balance for you. Don't consume caffeine late in the day. Try to avoid caffeine after 1 p.m. because caffeine can stay in your system for a very long time. And don't drink to help you sleep. Alcohol won't help you. Alcohol is a sedative, and sedation does not equal sleep. Some people say, I have a better night's sleep if I have a glass of wine. It's actually kind of like a placebo effect. It's giving you the perception that you're getting good night's sleep, but you're actually skipping that REM sleep, that really pivotal sleep that you need for your memory consolidation. Social engagement, also very important because it keeps the brain healthy and vital. This is another pillar of brain health. It's an important predictor of well-being throughout your entire life, but it's especially helpful later on in life because it can be life-affirming. People who have meaningful activities like volunteering, they say that they feel healthier and happier, and we also see this in research as well. Social activities are linked to reduced risk for some health problems, including dementia. And the latter is especially true as well. So conversely, when we look at social disengagement, it's been shown to place older adults, older individuals at risk for cognitive impairment and dementia. Here are some ideas for social engagement. Social interaction can affect older adults. It can affect their psychological, physical, and cognitive health in many different ways. Older adults can join a club, volunteer, or find a part-time job. They can deliver meals to isolated adults, get involved through a church group, make lunch plans, meet up with friends, join in social or other programs through your area agency on aging, senior center, or other community organizations. It is very important to make social engagement, socialization a priority, just as much as anything else when we're talking about leading a healthy lifestyle, because it can allow older adults to feel more independent and healthier and happier through their entire life. Let's talk about managing medical conditions because a variety of medical conditions are strongly linked to the decline of brain function. And this is especially significant because you can control these risk factors. And these are weight management, like being overweight or being underweight, hypertension, diabetes, high cholesterol, and depression. Weight management. So being overweight and underweight in both midlife might be associated with higher risk of dementia. We have a World Health Organization guidance on both overweight and obesity. Older adults need to try to reduce their weight by following a very balanced diet. A Mediterranean-like diet is recognized, World Health Organization, as a very healthy, sustainable diet. Try to reduce sedentary behavior and try to get 30 minutes of physical activity every single day, and to practice regular daily physical activity as appropriate. Also, it is important to seek professional advice if that is something that is also needed. Hypertension. Studies show that the reduction of hypertension, also known as high blood pressure, can have substantial benefits in reducing both cardiovascular morbidity, mortality, and improving overall health of the aging population. There's several ways to prevent hypertension, and we do this through very healthy lifestyle factors. We do this, again, we start to see a pattern here. Eating a healthy diet, maintaining a healthy weight, participating in adequate amount of physical activity. Diabetes. The presence of late life diabetes has been linked to an increased risk for dementia, and the management of diabetes is possible. We can do that in the form of medications or interventions. This can be offered to older adults with diabetes, and here are the World Health Organization guidelines. Well, let's talk about high cholesterol. Research suggests a relationship between high serum cholesterol levels and the onset of Alzheimer's disease and dementia. High cholesterol is one of those very key modifiable cardiovascular factors. It's based on severity, lifestyle, or pharmacological approaches undertaken to reduce blood cholesterol. Again, these are all things that can be managed and controlled. So it's very important to know what your risk factors are and what your medical conditions are, and to talk to your doctor to get very specific recommendations and tailored advice for you. Depression, there's a lot of evidence in this area, substantial body of evidence that links depression to cognitive decline and dementia. We see that older adults with depression experience what we call pseudo-dementia, where it presents itself like dementia, but it's really not. It's caused by something else. It's caused by depression, where we see a lot of changes in memory, thinking skills, and also other cognitive domains. And again, the good news here is treatments are always available. There are other threats to brain health that we should be aware of, and these are tobacco use, alcohol use disorders, sleep apnea, stress, and hearing loss. When we look at the studies when it comes to tobacco use, studies show an association between smoking in midlife and dementia or cognitive decline later on in life. And it's never too late to quit. If you are smoking, if you do know older adults who do smoke, who use tobacco, you can talk to them about the benefits of quitting. If you quit, you reduce the health risks for many types of cancers, cardiovascular diseases, respiratory disorders, and you may also start to see reduced depression, reduced stress, anxiety, improved mood, quality of life, and overall well-being. Alcohol use disorders. There's a lot of evidence in this research as well. Excessive alcohol use is a risk factor for dementia and cognitive decline. If you are engaging in hazardous drinking, if you know someone who is engaging in hazardous or harmful drinking, it's very important to start a discourse to talk about it, especially with friends, family members, with healthcare professionals, because there are treatments and interventions available. There's behavior and psychological interventions, both available as treatments. Let's talk about sleep apnea. Sleep apnea is a clinical disorder. It's marked by frequent pauses in breathing during sleep, and it's also characterized by loud snoring. It can be undiagnosed or untreated for many years, and sleep apnea can lead to cognitive decline if the proper treatment is not available. There's CPAP machines, lifestyle changes that are common sleep apnea treatments. Again, older adults do need to talk to their doctor if they believe that they are experiencing changes in their sleep enough to interfere with their daily life. And if they are noticing that they're having difficulty with breathing and also this characterization of loud snoring, it is important to start that dialogue because there are treatments available for this. Chronic stress. This is also an important one because we all experience stress. In fact, small stress or acute stress is good for us. It allows us to be productive. It allows us to do the things that we need to do every single day. It's a normal response to everyday activities. But chronic stress, which is stress over a long period of time, can have adverse effects on our memory, mood, anxiety. It can cause inflammation, and this adversely affects both our brain, our body, and our overall health. So it is important to address chronic stress as well. If you believe you are experiencing stress, if you know anyone who is experiencing stress, again, it's very important to talk to your doctor because there are stress management treatments and techniques that are available for individuals. Here are some ways to relax, recharge, try to reduce stress as much as possible. And you can recommend this to the people that you work with. This can also be applicable to you. These are just some ideas: going for a walk, spending time in nature, calling a good friend, releasing tension with a good workout, writing in your journal, taking a long bath, lighting some scented candles, savor a warm cup of coffee or tea, playing with the pet. That can be very therapeutic. Working in your garden, then you get that extra physical activity in while you're at it. Getting a massage, curling up with a good book, listening to music, watching a comedy. You do have to find one or two things that really work for you, because some of these things you may not find very relaxing or recharging. So you do have to kind of check in with yourself about what you enjoy, what you like, what your preferences are, to be able to identify one, two things that really work well for you. Hearing loss is something that is very common in older adults. It affects 1 in 3 adults age 65 and older, and it can have consequences on both social and emotional well-being, because individuals are not able to process and understand and initiate conversations and be able to understand their environment. Hearing loss is associated with increased risk of cognitive decline and dementia. There are interventions available that may be appropriate for some people, like hearing aids. That's a treatment of choice for many older adults. There are hearing screenings that are available if you believe that this is a concern for you or someone that you know. Okay, now that we know this information, what should we do about it? Because just knowing the information is not enough. We do need to put it into action. And engaging in a healthy lifestyle requires a lot of preparation and goal setting, especially if this is new for you. Pick one thing that you can do in each area that may help to improve your brain health. And I want you to think of very small first steps that you can take. And when we are writing goals, our goals should be SMART goals, which stands for specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, time-bound. And when we think of healthy goals, we usually think of goals such as I will eat healthier, or I will be more physically active, I will exercise my brain more. Those are very vague, broad goals that don't have any specific actionable items. You don't know what your deliverables are. You don't know what to do, when to do it. So when you write SMART goals, you're more likely to achieve your goals because they are very specific and they have an action and they're very time bound. So for example, I will walk for 15 minutes 3 times per week for the next 2 weeks. Or when it comes to diet and nutrition, I will eat 1 serving of vegetables 4 days out of the week for the next 4 weeks. Or I will attend at least 2 college classes within the next month. Write down what you will do and when you will do it. And like I said, this is new for a lot of people. It is important to keep track of your progress. If you miss a day, if you miss a week, if you miss a month, if you fall behind, don't be discouraged. Don't quit. Keep going. This is meant to be difficult. It's not easy because you are implementing very specific lifestyle changes. So it does require a lot of work, motivation, dedication, and goal setting and preparation. And also celebrate your progress. It will keep you motivated. It will give you an incentive to continue to move forward. And if I can leave you off with just a message, I would tell you that it's never too late to start loving your brain. It's never too late to start engaging your brain in novel, creative ways. It's lifestyle. Everything is connected. Follow your doctor's recommendations. Take your medications as prescribed. Eat a well-balanced diet. Prioritize brain health. Get 30 minutes of physical activity. Exercise and challenge your brain. Find creative new ways. And you may find activities that you really enjoy that you haven't tried before. So I would really encourage you all to prioritize 1 or 2 areas, the brain pillars that we talked about, and you will see improved quality of life, improved well-being, and improved brain power for many, many years to come. Thank you all so much. It truly was a pleasure.
Well, don't go anywhere, Roxy. That was fabulous. And we have some questions for you. But I just was struck by all of it, but those last few slides, the way you framed them, the title of them, Small Changes, Big Impact. That was really encouraging to me because, I've really slipped some of these areas. So today was just a fabulous reminder that it's never too late, to really make some
Exactly.
small changes that can really make a difference down the road. So we're so thankful for you being with us today. And we do have some questions for you, but before we begin that Q&A, just a reminder for everyone, in case we run past 12:30, you're welcome to stay. And while I'm talking, everybody put your questions into the chat box if I didn't say that already. But if you need to leave the webinar, you can, if it runs past 12:30. I think we're going to be pretty timely today. But all of you that need the CE credit, you must be online for the full 60 minutes. So wanted to remind you of that. And I also wanted to take a minute to thank our sponsors one more time for making all of this possible, not only today, but every month. All of our webinars have been just fabulous. And so a big thank you goes out to Care Choices, Hospice and Palliative Services, O'Connor Mortuary, and Caring Companions at Home. We're really grateful for your support. And I want to mention that next month, we're going to have another great webinar. Roxy spoke briefly about the importance of sleep on brain health. We're going to do a deep dive into that next month. We are having Dr. Ruth Benka from UCI Mind come and talk about understanding the connection between sleep and your health. And so I've heard her speak on this topic before, but just briefly, and we invited Melissa, our education director, invited her to come and speak, and we're very, very excited to have her come from UCI Mind to talk about this important topic. So with that, let me open up the question box and see what we have for you, Roxy. Okay. Oh, we have a lot. Okay. I thought I heard doing crossword and Sudoku puzzles may not be enough. Is that because after a while it's not challenging enough to stimulate brain activity? Great question.
Yes, that is absolutely true. If Sudoku crossword puzzles is something that is stimulating, something that's new for you, you can do it for a certain period of time. But afterwards, you do become very good at it, and it does become something that's very easy for you. So you consistently do need to be creative and find new ways to challenge your brain. So take it up a level, find something that's more difficult, because eventually those difficult things will become very easy. So you consistently have to find other difficult things to stimulate your brain.
Right. So doing things by rote is not going to be helpful, right?
Right.
Okay. Okay, great. Next question. What can you do to keep non-active elders awake in the late afternoon? My elder falls asleep as soon as they eat. Due to disease and chemo, they are winded, just rising to go to the bathroom. Okay.
Well, naps are a good thing, and it's completely healthy and completely normal for older adults to take naps, especially during the day. I think the general recommendation, try to avoid naps, is if you're noticing any changes in your sleep cycle. If you know that when you wake up in the morning, you're not feeling rested, you didn't have good quality night's sleep the night before, it's important to think about the time that you're awake. And I think it's completely fine for older adults to take naps during the day. But if you see that they are having difficulty falling asleep, it could be that they are taking long naps. So it's just important to be mindful and try to keep naps short and try to keep naps earlier in the day. But if you do want to keep some adults awake, perhaps they do maybe need some more stimulation during the day, some activities to keep them active.
Yeah, maybe some things that they could do seated. I mean, this person sounds very frail due to disease and treatments, etc. So maybe some things they could do seated, like puzzles or looking at photographs, etc. Yeah.
Yes.
Can smoking weed contribute to dementia?
That's an interesting one. I'm not sure if it's my area of expertise to be able to comment.
Mine
Um,
either.
so I guess we can leave that up to the professionals.
Yeah, I don't, I'm not going to comment on that either. I really don't know. I know that sometimes it's used for medicinal purposes, but I don't
Right,
know. I would say chronic use of any controlled substance over a long period of time can't be healthy. Uh,
right. We
but
probably don't have a lot of research in that area to be able to draw
no,
any conclusions at this time.
right. Thank you. I have another elder that enjoys 2 drinks. Well, we're partying now, aren't we, Roxy? I have another elder that enjoys 2 drinks most evenings. Is this considered too much? They take no meds and are pretty healthy. She takes, or he takes no meds and is pretty healthy for 69.
Well, that's an interesting question. We should talk about the Mediterranean-like diet because the way this research started, it was in the 1960s when researchers began looking at Mediterranean countries like Greece and Italy, and they started to see that they were much healthier compared to Americans. And it was not only because of their diet, but also because of their lifestyle. They were very physically active, and they also like to have a glass of wine or two before or after dinner, and that did not have any harmful effects to them. I think it's a very individual thing. I think it's important if that individual believes it is affecting their health, for them to talk to their doctor about it. But if you and there's some research that wine may be good for the brain, although there's no 100% absolute definitive proof of that. And we also say that coffee is good for the brain, but if you don't drink wine or if you don't drink coffee, it doesn't mean that you should start now. But if this older adult feels very happy and very content with just having a glass or two every day, and that's part of their routine, that's part of their lifestyle, and we probably might do more damage if we, take away their glass of wine. So it really is such an individual thing. It varies from person to person.
Roxy, I think I'm remembering that there was some mention of wine consumption in Claudia Kawas's 100 plus study over at UCI Mind as well. And I'm also thinking, as you mentioned, I'm thinking person-centered care and people's long-held traditions and all of that. So I agree. It's very individual.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We've talked about pot and drinking. Let's see what else we have in here. Okay, this is a medical question that I'm sure we're going to have to defer to a physician, but someone's asking, how does thyroid affect dementia? For example, if someone has had their thyroid removed and are on thyroid medication, do they have increased risk for dementia?
Yeah, it's probably a good idea to leave that to the professionals. The reason why we put those potentially reversible causes is because if people do experience any changes in their memory thinking skills, the first place that our mind goes is usually, is this dementia? Is this Alzheimer's disease? But there's so many different conditions and causes of memory loss that can be reversed and treated. That's why we put thyroid deficiencies on that slide. However, we can't say that if you do have any concerns, thyroid deficiencies, that puts you at an increased risk for Alzheimer's disease or other related dementias and disorders. That's probably something you should discuss with your doctor.
There's compliments in here, which we'll share with you later, and included in one compliment, someone is asking, do you offer trainings for memory care facilities by any chance?
Well, we do healthy brain presentations all throughout the community. At this time, it is virtual, but we are happy to, our education department would be happy to talk to you about presentation options. We're happy to bring this education out into the community. So just get in touch with us.
Great. Are power naps really beneficial? If they are, when is the best time to do it and for how long?
That's a good question. It's a very specific question. I guess when we're talking about power naps, that's about 15, 20 minutes. The reason why we say keep naps short is because if you do nap for a long period of time, it can disrupt your circadian rhythm, that internal biological clock that regulates your sleep-wake cycles. Because if you nap for a long time, let's say an hour or more, 2 hours, you're tricking your brain into thinking that you need to go to sleep. It's bedtime, it's nighttime. So yes, sometimes 15, 20 minutes of power nap can be very helpful, but also this is one of those individual things. There are some people that don't nap because if they nap, they wake up feeling more tired and they don't feel very rested. So you have to try to see if that's something that's appropriate for you. For many people, it works very well.
Thank you, Roxy. What type of provider can evaluate these pseudo dementias that you're talking about and tell the difference between them and true dementia? What types of tests need to be done? So
That's a
just
good
asking about
question.
assessment. Mhm.
Right. First and foremost, you should always consult with your primary care physician because they know you best. They have all your history and you've built a relationship with them. They can conduct testing. They can do cognitive testing, memory screenings. They may also do some routine lab tests. There's a series of various different screenings and testing that they may do. It depends also on the healthcare professional. They can refer you to a neurologist, a neuropsychologist, and they are specialists when it comes to diagnosing and treating individuals with various memory cognitive disorders. So the first step is always to talk to your primary care physician because they can tell you what the next steps are.
If also you can consult with our helpline, and we can send you lists of neurologists that are known to specialize in testing and Alzheimer's, and we have also lists of assessment centers and clinics here in Orange County if you're in our area. So be certain to reach out to our helpline.
I'd also, if I can, I'd like to put in a plug for our cognitive screenings, our mind checks. We have that available at this time. We are doing it virtually via Zoom, and it is very brief. It takes about 30, 40 minutes, and it's like a memory check. An individual will have a better idea of how their memory is compared to people within their age and education range. So if you're interested, call our helpline, and we'd be happy to give you more information on that.
Perfect. Okay, is there any research on the ketogenic diet and the prevention of dementia?
I'm sure there's a lot of research in that area. There's a lot of research on a variety of different diets, but exclusively when we're talking about a healthy brain diet, we talk about a Mediterranean-like diet because it's recognized by the World Health Organization as a healthy, sustainable dietary pattern. So I wouldn't be able to specifically comment on any other type of diet because the research tells us that when we are looking at a healthy brain diet, we need to be pursuing a Mediterranean-like diet, which consisted of the guidelines that we discussed today.
Just a couple more questions, and right now it looks like we're at 12:30, but Roxy, you'll stay for a few more minutes, and we've got like 2 or 3 more questions.
Sure.
Great. Again, a reminder to everyone that if you're getting CE credits, you must stay on for a full 60 minutes. When we end the webinar, your evaluation will pop up on your screen. If you leave before that, you'll get it via email. Can't people get good sleep even if they can't have a cool room?
Yes. Well, that's a general recommendation for people who are having difficulty falling asleep. And, you know, as we age, our sleep does become less deep and we are prone to, you know, disturbances, environmental disturbances. So that's a general recommendation. If you are having trouble falling asleep, Maybe it's due to the temperature in the room. That's one of the factors. That's why we say try to control the temperature in your room, 65 degrees, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to work for everyone. 65 degrees might be very cold for some people. So it really is kind of a preference thing. It's not a one-size-fits-all kind of approach. So yes, you can get a good night quality deep sleep without having to have 65-degree cool room.
This is from one of our healthcare professionals, residential care. How can we assist residents who want to sleep during the day and are wide awake at night? They do not want to participate with others, either in the late evenings.
I'm not really sure. Kim, you also have experience in this area.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you would recommend? Because I think it's such a, it's a very specific question.
Yeah. Well, the reality of Alzheimer's disease is that they have a different clock than we do, inner
That's
clock.
true.
And that if you have people who are awake at night, it's really ethically, it's our obligation to provide activities for them at night. You know, um,
Mm,
we can try to get them back on a regular pattern by making sure that they trying to keep them active during the day and you know, trying to get them back on track, but sometimes that just can't happen and they just have a reverse sleep cycle and we have to accommodate them because as we always say, we have to step into their reality instead of trying to bring them back to ours. So by rights, if we can't readjust them, then we have to adjust to their reality.
mm,
And so when people are up in the night, we have to offer them a snack. We have to, you know, do a quiet activity with them and we have to accommodate them is the real answer to that question. But, you know, just trying to, you know, offer them walks during the day and keeping them, you know, involved in some of the activities that Roxy talked about. You can try all those things, but worst comes to worst, you have to adjust having awake staff at night and accommodating them is my answer.
mm.
So the next question is it very common for someone with dementia to be extremely resistant to eating healthy food and drinking water? Is that common?
I believe so, because that individual probably has a certain type of food that they've ate all their life, that they enjoy, that they find comforting. It's very difficult to implement changes, especially later on in life, especially as it concerns older adults who are experiencing Alzheimer's disease or related cognitive disorders and dementias. So if it is very difficult for some older adults to implement these changes, it's probably better, you know, to not force them or to not, you know, cause any additional anxiety, stressors, not to overwhelm them with too much pressure. So again, it's such an individual thing.
I'm wondering too, like with the water, can't we flavor the water, you know, with packet mixes to make it more appealing to them, you know, so that.
Yeah, that's a great idea. If they like to have some juice or if they prefer colorful drinks, we can certainly put something in the water, right? Like some sort of a flavor, some sort of an added, um,
Or lemonade or
yeah,
tea.
exactly. Mhm.
Okay. I'm not sure I understand this question, so I'm going to see if you do. Other than blue light glasses, how do you decrease light from blue light bulbs when navigating the home at night prior to bedroom and getting to bathroom during the night?
So the
Oh,
recommendation is generally blue light is from electronic devices, iPhones, laptop, tablets, computers. The general recommendation is try to avoid electronics hours before bed, 2, 3 hours before bed. Don't even have them in the same room. Keep them in the living room or somewhere that's out of reach, so you're less likely to check your email, check the time. If you are getting up in the middle of the night to use the restroom, which everybody does, most people do, and you do have to turn on the light, I mean, that's fine. It's not a prolonged amount of light that's exposed to your sensory cells in the eyes. It's just for a very short, immediate time. That's fine. But if it is a problem for you, probably you could have night lights or very small dimmed lights that you can turn on at night if you do need to navigate the room, rather than very bright, sharp lights throughout the night. I hope I answered your question.
Great. Yeah, that sounds good. Let's see if there's anything else. I think this is a good endpoint. There may be a few questions that we missed, but if that's the case, we can have people reach out to Aroxy through our helpline. Aroxy is not only our brain fit and memory education coordinator, but she also serves on our helpline. So if you have additional questions, you can always reach out to our helpline. Also, we encourage you to visit our website to learn more about our education programs and to check out our virtual library online, past webinars, etc. And so we thank you again for being on the webinar today. We thank you, Aroxy, for the excellent presentation and for sharing your time and expertise with us. Once again, watch for the survey that will open up immediately when I end the webinar for everyone. It'll also be emailed to you 1 hour after the webinar ends. So make sure that you complete that survey if you're getting CE credits within 24 hours. And we do rely on your feedback, of course, all of you, to make improvements to our program, and we appreciate everyone's support of our webinar program. Thanks again one more time to Care Choices, O'Connor Mortuary, and Caring Companions at Home. Thanks to everyone, and have a great day. We'll see you next month for Dr. Ruth Benka from UCI Mind for understanding the connection between sleep and your health. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you, Kim. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.